Thank you all for joining us today at this breakout session on Earth observations for land management. We have recently formed a new cluster within ESIP, and this has been an effort from the AEOIP community, which is the Applied Earth Observation and Innovation Partnership. And now we are forming this cluster called Earth Observations for Land Management. And so I'm Liz Hoy. I'm a contractor at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. The company I work for is Global Science and Technology. And I'm within the NASA Biosphere Implementation Office, helping the Biosphere Sphere at NASA to do support different projects and applications. Mostly I've been helping to support the Arctic Boreal Vulnerability Experiment above, and to make sure that other folks know about the data and the outcomes of this, what has been a 10-year field airborne and remote sensing campaign. And I'm one of the current co-chairs for this new cluster and the AUIP community. And I'll let my other co-chair take it over. Andy, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself too.
Sure. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Andy Lister. I am a research forester with the USDA Forest Service. I live and work near Windmore, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. My area of research is forest inventory design, optimization, biometrics, remote sensing, and geospatial analysis integration in national forest inventory. And I'm real excited to learn what everybody else is up to.
Oh, and we have to explain our little quotes too. I I have two children, and we do 4-H and we raise livestock animals. And so we're in the process of buying 2 more goats for this year. So we keep them at a farm nearby. We don't have farmland of our own, but it's a fun and rewarding activity, but also very time consuming because we're constantly driving to the farm.
Well, I lost my daughter and her boyfriend were visiting from Seattle over Christmas, and he said, "Oh, he lost his boots or his boots broke." And I said, "Oh, I'll give him mine because I have another pair." And so I gave him my boots that I normally use, and then I got out to go skiing the other day, cross-country skiing, and my boots wouldn't fit in the binding, and I realized I'd given him the only boots that would fit with my skis, so I no longer had ski boots. So I was mad.
And then Amanda, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Amanda Armstrong, research scientist at NASA Goddard. I work for a co-op under the umbrella of the University of Maryland called ESSEC in the Biospheric Sciences Lab at Goddard. I'm actually, this is my second ESIP meeting that I've attended. Everett and I are recent co-chairs emeritus, I guess, for the AEOIP. And during last year, I had the pleasure to go and present at the annual meeting that was in Seattle. So I've really enjoyed getting to know this community a little bit. I'm really excited that AEOIP is sort of joining forces with ESIP to form this new collaboration area. And so we thought this was like a really good time to get everybody together and sort of introduce ourselves and kind of raise awareness about our community and about our mission. And I guess my quote here was sort of last minute one this morning. I coach a lot of soccer outside of my day job, and we've been playing a lot of winter soccer outdoors this January, actually in December as well, and we keep getting thwarted and canceled because of snow. And so I basically have to kind of fend off daily text messages from other coaches and other parents on the teams that I coach, freaking out about whatever upcoming snow is. So I'm always talking to them about weather models and trying not to panic or think too far ahead when it comes to the weather these days. So I'll pass the baton on to Everett.
Well, thank you, Amanda and Liz and Andy. Everett Hinckley, I'm retired from the Forest Service. I retired back at the end of April, and I feel like I was kind of blown out of the airlock there, like on 2001, A Space Odyssey. So that's actually where my quote comes from, open the pod bay doors, Hal, because I'm trying to get back into the ship, which is why I continue to participate in these very valuable communities of practice. I'm still very vested in resource management applications of remote sensing. I guess technically speaking, I was one of the originators of this group back in 2018 when Lawrence Friedel at NASA and I started talking about how do we make better connections between the end user community and the people that are producing Earth observation data. There's a lot of issues about awareness and who's doing what, and who do I contact at NASA or NOAA or wherever to get Earth observation data. So we wanted to create a forum where we could better line up the users and the suppliers and help NASA and NOAA and other agencies prioritize their resources in supporting other federal agencies. So that's kind of where I'm from, and it's kind of weird being on the outside looking in, knocking on the door saying open the pod bay doors, Hal. So with that, I'll turn it back to Liz and Andy.
Right. Let's see. So our session goals today, we wanted to talk a little bit more about this new land management collaboration area or cluster, however ESIP chooses to call it. And we're actually going to do an activity later on in the session to help define strategic priorities for our new collaboration area. We want to work with those of you in the session today to identify technical and institutional barriers in developing and using data products and land management, and just work to build connections across the research to application spectrum. And I like this little graphic, which I think Andy used AI to develop. We're just talking about bridging the gap between Earth observations and applications. Is that right, Andy? Did you?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, so we have another little poll. So if you still have your Slido open, it should show up. And we just wanted to kind of poll folks here today and ask you which community you're coming from and who do we have here in the room with us. Let's see, I think I can tell how many people have participated. 6 votes. Might be all we get. Okay, mostly we got researchers, other, and developer. I wonder who, the person who wrote other, if you want to identify yourself, you can write it in the chat or put it elsewhere. Or you can shout it out if you want to say what you think other is. There we go, 7 votes.
Well, Liz, I was one of the others. I don't know if there was more than one, but
okay.
I'm kind of, I'm not sure where I'm at right now, but I'm an
that's true.
I'm an avid supporter, so.
Mm-hmm.
And I can chime in as I'm most recently retired from the University of New Mexico, where the common thread across my 30 years, though, as a graduate student in archaeology, using remote sensing data in archaeological contexts, and then in an applied research center where we specialize in geospatial applications, assimilating and building applications based on remote sensing and other geospatial data for a wide variety of users, including land management partners. And then my final decade at UNM directing our research data services program for the library. But before that, I had established my land management, data management foundation right out of college in the late 80s, working for the U.S. Forest Service as an archaeologist. And that's where my wife and I met, actually our first day doing archaeological survey following the big fires in the Central Sierras in 1987. And she stayed in the Forest Service, and I moved on to do all those other things. But I've always had a close connection and interest at that intersection of land management, geospatial data, and Earth observations as a subset of that.
Cool, thanks, Carl. I appreciate that. And if there's not that many of us in here, I wonder if anyone else wants to just quickly introduce themselves and say hello, because I think we have a smaller group today, so we might actually have enough time to just do real quick introductions. I see Jonathan Blythe put something in the chat about who he is. Alistair did as well. So, oh, there we go. Forestry Service. He has a Forestry Service wife. Love it. Yeah. So, if anybody else wanted to introduce themselves real quickly, I think you have enough time. You can come on and do that if you want. Or not. You can do it during the breakout sessions too. Okay. Well, we'll move on, and I'm going to let Amanda and Everett take it over. They're going to talk a little bit about where we've come from with the Applied Earth Observations and Innovations Partnership, AEOIP. It's been we've over 5-year effort now to do this partnership, and now we're joining this ESIP environment, and we just wanted to kind of explain where we've come from. So I'll let Amanda take it over.
All right, thanks, Liz. Yeah, so as Liz said, we thought, coming in here to this meeting today and, having a breakout, we wanted to kind of provide some context and background kind of from where we're coming from and some of the lessons that we've learned along the way during the 6+ year partnership. So I don't know if you want to, I guess, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so just, a little bit about who we are. We are a very professionally diverse committee that meets bi-weekly to advance the goals of our partnership. So here we have pictured our current co-chairs in the middle there, and then past co-chairs with the advisory board's members listed in the middle. We also have kind of 50 or so more community members that are sort of at-large membership that attends workshops and webinars, and we aim to bring in as many folks as possible that are within this community, just to be able to collaborate and establish new ways of communicating across our agencies and across our different realms. So a couple other people that have left off, there's a few alumni board members as well. There's been a lot of shift that has occurred over the past year, plus that we just didn't have space in this slide to list. I will say, like, one of the things that that drew me to this group initially in terms of co-chairs and membership is that, we really, each year our co-chairs have existed or have worked for different agencies. So we've never had two from the same agency. And I think that's been really important in just fostering really productive conversations along the way. So I guess go ahead and go to the next slide. So we just wanted to show sort of a timeline of where we've been. The idea for this remote sensing exchange forum in general, it originated, I think Everett might have already mentioned this, but it originated from a conversation that he had with Lawrence Friedel back in 2017, and that discussion centered around the need to improve collaboration and coordination between the resource management community at the Forest Service and the sensor product community at NASA. There was also a need to sort of better inform NASA of Forest Service priorities and needs, and to better inform the end users of remote sensing data sources. So through collaboration between Forest Service and NASA, and now also we've included, others, we've sort of attracted others to be in on the conversation as well, from USGS and BLM, and in the past, NOAA. We've found that, although it's sort of been in existence in the past over decades, engagement has often been pretty ad hoc and not very well coordinated within and across agencies. So we wanted to come together to sort of improve and enhance this coordination and include more agencies as well. And so the first joint workshop that occurred, which was back in April of 2019 in Salt Lake City, it was very well attended. So it seems that a lot of people are interested in the same ideas and concepts, and it was attended by Forest Service, USGS, NOAA, and representatives from a number of U.S. other institutions and universities. And the objective of that workshop was to increase awareness and understanding of the capabilities of NASA data and products, and also strengthen partnerships between NASA and these different other land management entities. And so it was during the 2019 workshop that this concept of this ongoing partnership arose. And if you look at the bottom of this timeline, you can see some of the publications that have come about through some of the different the other meetings and processes that we have kind of undertaken to kind of get the word out and sort of foster this partnership amongst these different entities. So one of the first things that came about was a publication, a GTR, the U.S. Forest Service, which is a general technical report to report on these efforts to kind of identify more opportunities for collaboration between the Forest Service and NASA along topics of things such as like soil moisture and hydrology, carbon emissions and flux, vegetation structure and function, and some other key high-level opportunities for increased coordination and collaboration that were identified during that were to develop a strategic framework for collaboration and coordination, also to establish working groups and engage in early adopter programs, distill needs, requirements, and conduct feasibility studies, and finally to try to integrate tools and data. Can you, I guess, let's see, let's go. Oh, another important thing that happened during this time. So during the pandemic, the co-chairs during that time, which were Everett Hinckley and Sabrina Delgado Arias, they brought together the community in sort of a new format, which was kind of new and exciting. But the group coordinated a virtual pitch fest, which was also followed by an ideas forum, which was done to seed and new collaborations between data users and producers and foster new community engagements in a meaningful way along the way. So, and maybe Everett wants to talk more about that when he gets the baton in a minute. But another thing that I wanted to just briefly touch on was that following this ideas forum and pitch fest, we sort of had to reinvent ourselves again, which was when we sort of renamed the AEOIP into the Applied Earth Observation Innovation Partnership. And we held a 2022 workshop that had to be virtual, again, due to the pandemic. But during that, we sort of explored the data needs of resource managers towards making more informed management decisions. Can you advance the slide? So I'll touch back on what that meant in a minute, but just kind of wanted to show again, we've been very busy. We've had a lot of different publications. And we also we started a monthly webinar series back in 2022, and that's continued throughout. That's one of the ways that we seek to engage and also inform. And there's been a couple of other workshops that we've held as well. So I guess next slide. Okay, so the 2022, 2023, and 2024 workshops sort of, the similarities between them were that we've been bringing together the needs of these research managers to make, in order to help management not only make decisions, but also on the EO side to help inform, the research to operations pathway. And in the 2022 workshop, we talked a lot about the sort of duality of that pathway and sort of traditionally how, it was sort of seen as, the data producer. So up at the graphic at the upper right there, the data providers produce these data sets and then hope that the data users will uptake them and use them for management. And there hadn't sort of traditionally been a lot of feedback between the users and the providers. And so I guess, can you just click the mouse once? Because I put in an animation there. But sort of really the picture should be more of the duality of that feedback and how the data users that are applying these data sets can also inform, the next generation of EO data that is produced and the sensors that are put up in orbit to try to improve access. And just sort of access to the landscape, but improve the work that we all do together. And so that was kind of and been the main goals of these sort of more recent workshops. And I think I'll leave it there. So Everett, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I just wanted to kind of showcase kind of what we've been doing most recently. And that kind of dives into what we're going to hopefully get up to with ESIP in the coming year plus.
Yeah, and thanks, Amanda. By the way, I love these diagrams here. You know, I've always been about collaboration and coordination and really being sort of the telephone operator that's connecting end users and the folks that have data, developing tools where necessary. And going back to the Pitch Fest, back during the pandemic, that was one of those ideas that was born out of necessity, and it turned out to be um, one of the most amazing events that I've participated in. We created something, I think we had around 50 pitches that were, uh, they were like 5-minute pitches. And um, we created something called the Book of Abstracts, which I referred back to many times for ideas and also to remember who the people were that were doing the pitches so that I could be in touch with them about various things. But I've just been really impressed over the course of, you know, the past 6 or 7 years about how much energy and enthusiasm there has been in this group. And also you know, if you go back to the co-chair listing, just the number of really great, inspired and bright people that have been leading this group as co-chairs. So I've been really pleased with the way this group has developed. And there's been some pretty, you know, tough headwinds over the past couple of years with the pandemic, which started back in 2020 and lasted a while. And then more recently, some of the upheaval that's taken place over the past year in terms of, you know, people coming and going and switching jobs and trying to figure out um, who's doing what, and especially now that I'm outside the airlock. And also we've had very strong support from Forest Service leadership and NASA leadership over the years, and more recently with USGS and other federal agencies. But you know, I think leadership understands the value of geospatial data and the importance of us having this frictionless exchange between data users and data providers. So I think that's all I really had to say about the slides up to this point, Amanda, if we want to go to the next one. So yeah, this is from our website, which is sort of in stasis right now. It's not current, but the information that's there, you can click on the QR code there or the link and get to the the website that's still parked on the Wix site there. And it has a lot of useful information about what the mission of the AEOIP is, fostering interagency partnership to advance Earth observation based land management, and our vision by connecting the Earth observation science and technology experts with land management experts. We seek to increase awareness of new Earth observation capabilities, as well as research and operational management challenges in order to help formulate solutions through effective integration of data. And I've always been a firm believer that we have a lot of resource management challenges, and the beauty of Earth observation data is that if it's used properly in concert with different data sets and so forth, we can really form a picture of what's going on the Earth's surface and help the land managers to make intelligent decisions about what needs to be done on the land, whether it's for emergent events like fire and disasters, or whether it's for long-term management applications. Earth observing capabilities are critically important to supporting these decision-making activities. Did you want to add anything there, Amanda? Okay. Next slide. I think that yeah, and this just shows the one of the drop down links, you know, that with the guiding principles. Inspiration goes both ways. It absolutely does, and I believe in that exchange between the end users and the data suppliers, the data managers. You know, we need to have that understanding of what's really needed. Is everything out there? Are there gaps in the information that we have? And how can we leverage Earth observation data in a more effective and efficient way? So let's see. Yeah, the guiding principles: interagency coordination, making connections, creating space, process advancement, data integration, and being results driven. Next slide, please. So now we're, you know, it showed on the timeline there that we've been in a multi-month process of transitioning to into the ECIP collaboration areas. And there's a number of reasons why we made this move. And you can see these bullets here that where we thought that there was good synergy between what we're doing with the AEOIP and developing a cluster within ESIP. Infrastructure and technical support. We coordinate with ESIP staff on monthly webinars and website presence. We definitely want to get our website reestablished because that's something that I point to on a regular basis. Expanded reach and visibility, so we can reach out to and we can build awareness with a wider community as we're working through this process over time. Sustainability and continuity. That's one concern that I had leaving the government was, is this group going to be sustained and will there be continuity going forward? Will other people continue to pick up the baton going forward? Cross-cluster synergies. There's lots of clusters in ESIP and lots of, I'm also working with the wildfire cluster and so there's lots of synergy between the different groups. Artificial intelligence, that's another area where there's growing influence in the Earth observing area. And I want to make sure that we leverage AI and machine learning appropriately and to the full extent possible while avoiding some of the pitfalls that go along with that. So that's also a strong area of focus within the ESIP. An enhanced impact association with ESIP increases stakeholder awareness and provides a platform for future collaboration. So all those things really, I think there's really good synergy between the work of the AEOIP and having this strong relationship with ESIP. Did you have any other thoughts you wanted to mention there, Amanda, on the ESIP collaboration?
No, I think this is great. Covers it really well. Thanks.
Okay, and I think this is where we turn it back to Liz and Andy.
Thanks, Everett and Amanda, for just giving us the history and some of the results of these earlier efforts within AEOIP. I think it's really important that we kind of see the history of how this group, which is kind of a loose collection of folks across these different agencies, have really come together around this issue. And now we're trying to think about ways we can take this group forward and with our relationship now with ESIP. And so thinking about future webinar topics and future workshop topics that we could potentially come up with. So now we're going to take a little bit of time. Andy's going to talk to us a little bit from the land management perspective about kind of what some of the needs are and what some of the barriers are might be right now. And then I'll share a little bit about some of the NASA Earth data sets we currently have available. And then we're going to move into kind of a little scenario exercise and we'll figure out how many people if we do breakout groups or if we stay as a group together. But we'll do an exercise that's a little bit more interactive where everyone will get to participate and think about some of these barriers or tools you might need or workflows that might be useful. And so we'll think about that. So kind of as you hear our talks, be thinking about what is important for your own work and be ready to share some of that during our breakouts. So I'll let Andy go ahead and take it away to get started.
Okay, just next slide. So, like as Liz said, this is meant to sort of prime us for the discussion in the breakout group. So, I'm a Forest Service researcher. I don't work for the National Forest System. The National Forest System is the network of public lands managed by the Forest Service, or a subset of that. So a typical National Forest System land manager, when they do a task associated with their Forest Service land management job, it's really sort of a GIS exercise, right? So they take existing maps, they clip them to their study area. Let's say there's some sort of a project area they're going to be working in. They use these analysis-ready GIS data that they've downloaded off the internet or enterprise data sets stored in like an enterprise warehouse or an enterprise GIS, clearinghouse type thing. And they produce these analytical products like maps and graphs and whatnot. And you give that to the actual decision makers or the on-the-ground managers. So next click. So, one of the big jobs that Forest Service land managers have to deal with is the environmental regulations, and NEPA, National Environmental Planning Act, among other things, instructs federal agencies that are doing some sort of a significant land management activity to basically do an environmental assessment. And so the types of data sets that would typically in the Forest Service be used are things like land cover, land use maps, vegetation maps, different maps about the water resources, wildlife of interest, including threatened and endangered species. They might use climate or other maps, soils, and then of course there's infrastructure and all that, depending upon the project. So all that gets put into a big fancy GIS analysis, and actionable information comes out. So next slide. That's kind of the traditional thing. So I think a lot of the interest in our cluster in ECIP is to say, well, that's great. That's a GIS analyst. What about the Earth observation enabled land manager? And those are things that, you don't necessarily learn in land manager school or on the job, because, you're so used to doing your normal workflows. So in this workflow, you'd actually download some sort of raw Earth observation data, like satellite imagery, for example, and you develop machine learning models or other types of models using the more granular, the preliminary data, not just using ready-made maps that are already stored and waiting to analyze. So with these models, you generate maps or other geospatial products, and then again, you pass that information to the management and policy decisions. So, so next click. So most people are familiar with what that looks like in practice, but here's a sort of a little schematic. Normally, when you're making a model using predictors, geospatial predictors like remote sensing data, you have some ground truth, some known data, right? So you intersect that known data with these predictors, and most interest in the Earth Observation Committee is community is like remote sensing data. So you attribute these ground data like plots, they could be polygons, with the remote sensing data. You build a model. And typically the attribute of interest, maybe it's carbon, maybe it's species richness or species diversity or whatever, is a function of these raw data, the imagery, and then whatever other GIS data you might want. So examples of how an Earth observation enabled land manager would use this workflow are doing things like forest change monitoring. Yeah, there exist, forest change products you could download off the internet, but we might have a specific definition of forest change, or whatever is available just by default from like Global Forest Watch or the LCMS system that the Forest Service or NLCD change products. Maybe that doesn't meet the needs of the specific area. So you could build a model that tailors the results to these local needs. Risk mapping, there might not be an existing map of risk. It's just something that has to be created using, local knowledge. Suitability mapping, the same thing. Vegetation types, wildlife. I just got a call recently from a guy who was interested in lynx habitat. He's like, oh, I need to make a lynx habitat map, and I need to use some sort of a ground data, and I need to use forest inventory data because there are certain species that they tend to be interested in. Well, you can't just download that and start using it. So anyway, this would be the workflow that we're interested in talking about with you guys. Next slide. So, okay, great. Let's talk about it. Well, we look at the inputs to that Earth observation enabled workflow. We've got Landsat and Sentinel data, which are, 30 and 10 meter resolution, satellite imagery, respectively. You've got LiDAR data, you've got radar data, you've got airborne, you've got spaceborne LiDAR, you've got drones, different sensors, water data, digital elevation models, vegetation maps, risk maps. Okay, so next slide, or next click. You've got all these tools. Well, we all use ArcGIS, or most people, but then maybe you use QGIS in your organization. Are you an R coder, a Python coder? Do you use Google Earth Engine? Do you use Microsoft Planetary Computer? Photo interpretation, And now we've got these things, we've got these GeoAI tools that Everett is heavily into, and vibe coding. You don't have to know anything about coding, and you can go on Google Colab and ask it to process shape files and raster imagery, and it writes the code and does it for you. And then in the last 5 years or so, there's this blossoming of these consultants that produce products that are trying to meet the needs of both public and private data users. So next. So what are you supposed to do? You're the land manager who's been doing your thing in the Forest Service or in what other agency for years with your well-known GIS workflows. You just can't figure it out. And I think one of the problems that that the ECIP cluster that we're starting here is trying to do is trying to help people navigate that. How can we make it a little bit easier to assimilate all this new stuff and improve land management? So next. So the challenges. Next click. So, one of the big things, of course, is data discovery. And I think I sort of alluded to this, but there's just gajillions of GIS and remote sensing sensors out there. And NASA is great at showing this stuff off, but it's a little bit harder to assimilate it and figure out, well, what works best for me. Next slide. How do you use cloud computing? We've all heard of cloud computing. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean my data are in SharePoint? That's cloud computing. Well, specifically, I'm talking about geospatial stuff. And, the most obvious ones everybody's heard of are Google Earth Engine. There are other ones like Google Earth Engine, Planetary Computer. Esri has its own cloud services where you could do, you could do remote sensing in the cloud without actually downloading the data. Next. So, as we advance in our technology and all these new sensors and our ability to do this ourselves, we get to this situation where we've got so much information. We have this NAS, a T drive in research and development, I guess in the whole Forest Service. It's got, I don't know, petabytes of data. And the problem is, it's people like me and others. You guys have maybe done this yourselves. tempandy1.img, tempandy2.img, tempandy3.tiff, because it needs to be in a TIFF format. You know how that goes. Next slide. And finally, this whole new world that happened in the last, came out of nowhere, the last few years, a couple of years. We've got AI. We can do all this AI stuff, and it's overwhelming, and we just need to figure out how to do it. So these are all topics that I think this new cluster, one of the goals is to help us navigate these things. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Andy. And I really appreciate what you're saying about how, and NASA has these different data sets, but how do we put them into our models and tools? And in our scenarios planning that we'll do, we'll get to talk about that a little bit more. But just to familiarize folks with some of the NASA Earth Science data sets that are available, I'm just going to highlight some of the sensors and missions that we do have and talk a little bit about perhaps some of the land management applications that we could have with these different data sets. But I am, of course, aware of the fact that it is really difficult to get them into the workflows, and that's what our scenarios activity will be about. So yes, I know I'm going to share them with you anyways, just so everyone's on the same page for our scenario. And this is not all of the different NASA Earth Science data sets, but I'm just going to highlight some of the missions that we have going on. So NASA operates over 20 Earth observing satellites with free and open data. And there's a NASA Earth Data Portal that's recently been stood up. And I didn't want to go into that too much at this ECIP meeting because I think some of the other sessions have already touched on this a little bit. But I did just want to remind folks that it is there. And so you'll see a number of different sensors around here, and I'll highlight a couple of these. And this was updated in 2025, and it's actually, it can be updated again because NISAR has now launched, and it is starting to collect data. So it's almost into the green. I don't know that they're still doing kind of a science review of it, but it's we're kind of getting around in here our little cornucopia of all the different sensors, and I'll go through some of them. So Landsat, the Foundation for Land Monitoring, 50 plus years of continuous Earth observations. 30 meters resolution, a 16-day repeat since 1972. And so you can really look at forest inventory and health, bird severity mapping, land cover change detection, urban planning. And there are different places where you can get these data, such as even Google Earth Engine, as Andy was mentioning. It's there, it's available. I know you can get it from Earth Explorer. You might even be able to get it from the Earth Data Portal. I'm not completely sure, but there are many places where it's accessible, and many applications due to the long history of its availability. What's really nice now, oh good, I wasn't sure if that would work. What's really nice now is this harmonized Landsat Sentinel product, which is really, it bridges this gap between the Landsat data and the Sentinel data, which is a European sensor that's similar to Landsat in a lot of respects. And by using both of these sensors together, you can get 2 to 3 day observations instead of the 16-day repeat of Landsat. So 30-meter resolution with an atmospherically corrected product. And so this can be really useful for land managers and for land management applications. Let's see, maybe I could make it play again. I didn't know how that would work. Just more frequent observations, less cloud interference, pre-processed and ready to use, consistent format across both of these sensors or these different sensors, ideal for looking at vegetation and rapid change detection. You could use it with crop monitoring, post-fire recovery, forest health, water quality. And it's available at different NASA and USGS sensors or data archives. MODIS and VIIRS. Jenny Houston was on this call, and she does a lot with firms. So which is the Fire Information for Research Management System. And so MODIS, which is both the Terra and Aqua sensors, and then now transitioning into VIIRS, as MODIS is going to start to go away, but VIIRS is going to stick around. These sensors offer 250 meter to 1 kilometer resolution, and you can have daily coverage. So land management applications could be active fire detection and monitoring, snow cover and water availability, vegetation for grazing, or flood and drought monitoring. And I think FIRMS is a really great example of this, where you are provided near real-time information on locations and wildfires. And you can actually tailor alerts for specific areas where you might be in charge of land management for. So if you have a specific park or land management unit, you can tailor an alert to let you know that something's happening in your region. JEDI is the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Investigation. It's on the International Space Station, and it was extended for a longer time period. And we're able to get forest height information and kind of vertical information on tree canopies from this. And it only goes to about, I think, 60 degrees north, but so it covers a large portion of the Earth, but not boreal and boreal regions in Alaska and Canada. But you can look at forest biomass and carbon estimation, canopy height for wildlife habitat assessments, forest structure for fire behavior modeling, timber volume estimation. But again, there is that issue of, okay, well, these data are available, but how do I get that into my model as a land manager? See if that one works too. Yeah. GRACE and the GRACE follow-on mission, looking at water below the surface and understanding groundwater and drought. And so this is a monthly gravity measurements revealing water storage changes. So land management could be important for groundwater depletion or drought assessment and prediction, water resource planning, irrigation management. SMAP is soil moisture active passive. It's a radar instrument which is used to understand soil moisture. It's 9-kilometer resolution with a 2 to 3 day repeat, but it has this near global coverage, and you can look at agricultural drought monitoring or fire danger assessment, flood prediction, or rangeland productivity forecasting. And how do you start to use all of these different data sets in your workflows? NASA has this program called the Applied Remote Sensing Training Program, or RSET. And this is a way to use these NASA data in your work. They have these, they're, for the most part, virtual classes. They're offered in English and even in Spanish as well sometimes. And they're free. They're also recorded webinars and self-guided tutorials that you can go through to learn how to do your earth science work with these different NASA data. And I was going to put a link in the chat. It's currently, there's even a new class that you can sign up for right now, which is about, just got one the other day. There's going to be a training. It's like there's going to be a water training. There's an air quality training coming up. If you look at that link, there's monitoring water quality in lakes and coastal regions using stream data, visualizing land cover and land use changes with NASA satellite imagery is a training that's going to come up in February. So they have many different training opportunities where they are trying to bridge this gap between what data we now have available and how can this be implemented. And I wanted to just share some additional capabilities that have come online in the last few years. So they're newer and you may not be as familiar with them. NISAR is the instrument I was mentioning on that first slide that this launched in 2025, and the team that launched this satellite is still working to understand the data and make sure that all the data is ready for prime time. And but you will be able to use this for deformation and biomass. On the right here, you can see this is one of the first images ever from the NISAR satellite, and you can kind of detect where there are just different changes across the landscape. Soy and pasture, you can see where the river is, cornfields, fallow fields. So there are going to be a lot of agricultural applications to this as well. And Tempo is an air quality monitoring satellite we have up where you can kind of see smoke and dust. And this is really focused on North America specifically, kind of keeping an eye on North America. It's like a geostationary satellite, so it stays in one spot and is always imaging North America. SWAT is another satellite where you can get surface water extent, pace, ocean, atmosphere, and aquatic ecosystems. And then NASA now has these commercial data partnerships with, I guess, Maxar, which has changed its name now, and I can't remember the new name, but we have high resolution commercial satellite imagery from many different providers that NASA tries out, and other federal agencies are able to use these data through the different licenses that NASA is purchasing for these data sets as well. So there's on this website, this Earth Data website, there's a whole program about it, and you can request to use the data as long as you have an active federally funded grant. For the most part, you can access these different data sets and use them in your research, but it has to be like a federally funded or a federal agency grant to be able to use them. And I think that is, that's the last of my slides, just kind of giving you a brief overview of some of the different NASA data sets that are available that could be used in these tools. But now we want to give ourselves time to do our scenarios planning. Andy's, I see you're putting things in the chat. Okay, good. Do you want to expand on what you? Well, I'll go on to this a little bit. So
this is just right. This isn't what I'm just putting stuff in there that people might find of general interest, not necessarily what you're talking about.
That is perfectly fine. So now what we wanted to do with the remaining time for our session is have these, we're going to go through these different, we're going to select a scenario or two to talk about as a group. We have 12 participants, but I think some of our participants are actually just our hosts, making sure our meeting is active. So I don't know, we want to do 1 or 2 groups, but I'd like everybody to fill out the poll. And if you were going to spend 20 minutes talking about one of these different scenarios, what would you be most interested in talking about based on what you already know about land management or earth data sets? Are you interested in water resource management, urban forest resources, fire disturbance, wildlife habitats, forest resource, or coastal and wetland management? So I want everybody to kind of fill out the poll and tell us what you're interested in, and then we're gonna pick, and we're gonna discuss that either as a group or within 2 groups. We'll have to see how many folks we have fill out the poll.
So Liz, I was going to wait till the non-host folks voted before I put my iron in the fire there, but
yeah, I think you go ahead and put it in. We'll see what we've got here. We've got 7 votes in the poll right now.
Oh,
So
good.
go ahead and vote. Everyone can decide. Surprise, Coastal's coming out on top here. Okay, fire's coming up second.
We could probably map this to, like, you know, all
Yeah.
the things that are coming out in the news, like, oh, you know, the sea level's rising, so everybody's like coastal.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Well, we have 8 votes, and I don't know if with 8 people, I almost, what do you think, Andy, Everett, and Amanda? Do you think we should, now we've got 9 votes. Should we do 2 of these, or should we just all talk about one of them? I think it'd be nice to get in smaller groups. It might be nice to just have maybe 2 breakouts and have, it looks like maybe whoever selected coastal, you could have those folks go in one group, and then the other group, oh, this is tough. We got urban, forest, fire, and forest and wildlife all kind of split here. So we need like a tiebreaker vote.
I'm going to see about breaking the tie here.
Okay, see if you can break that tie, Everett. Vote 2 or 3.
Oh, forest resource
Oh, but
management
Amanda
wins.
says 2 or 3.
Oh, wait.
Oh no. We're scared. Yeah, the problem, Carl, is we
good
actually
point, Carl.
already have scenarios that are ready to go.
Yeah, but I mean, we
Okay.
could wing it too. I mean, just sort of
Could wing
generic
it too.
forest. I mean, I mean, they're 2 distinct things, right? So the coastal is one thing. That's
Yeah.
like water focus, and then forest-y things, which could include fire or wildlife
Yeah.
or whatever.
So
But somebody likes
let's
urban.
see. Somebody does like urban. Let me find this link.
We could say that, like, you know, forest did, you know, part of the coastal wetland topic has to do with forest, right? Because, you know, similar themes, whereas urban is very distinct, I think. So maybe we could do those 2 distinct things, like coastal and wetland focus with some elements of forest, and then urban. And then just, you know, when we get into the breakout rooms, you know, we'll sort of liberally interpret the scenario.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I think what we'll do is we'll have 2 breakouts. One group will cover scenario 6, and then the other group, I guess we'll start out in scenario 2, but really we could kind of map it a little bit more to think about some of these other aspects as well, but what data sets and things might be needed. So the way that's going to work, I put a link in the chat with a Google Doc, and each tab is going to be these different scenarios. When we get into the breakout groups, that's where it'll become more important. But these are going to be our questions, which are the same questions for either of the 2 breakout groups. Just thinking about what Earth observations data could help address the land management challenge presented in the scenario, and describe the data needs with respect to spatial and temporal resolution. What derived products or analysis-ready data would help to make this more actionable? What institutional technical barriers prevent the use of these data? What kind of workflow can you imagine? And the scenarios are little paragraphs that we did have AI help us write, and they're just to get us thinking. But you don't have to exactly stick to that scenario. You can just talk about from your own experiences what you think the answers to some of these questions might be. And then we're really interested in question 6. How can our new collaboration area help to address some of the gaps and determine these solutions? So we'll open up the 2 breakouts, and I guess we'll try to divide ourselves up into 2 different groups. So all the coastal folks who are interested in coastal should go in one, and we'll put you in group 1. And then all the folks that were interested in forests, let's go in group 2. Thanks, everybody. I think these breakouts are never long enough. We tried to leave enough time for breakouts, but I feel like we still could have used even more time.
We agree.
Yep.
Does somebody from the forest group want to talk a little bit about what you discussed? Which scenario did you end up writing under, so we can all kind of
2.
Number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah, the urban forest scenario.
Just for I'm going to just put the link again in the chat for the scenarios document. Probably you all already have it.
This was great, being able to all of us be typing in our ideas in here as we were going. So it, with a limited amount of time, this worked really well.
Yeah, very
Good.
efficient. I like it.
Yeah, somebody else did this in another ESIB session the other day, and I liked it. So that's why we ended up going with this one. All right, does one of you want to give kind of a quick overview of what you came up with, and then we'll do ours in the coastal group?
Amanda, I'll push the puck to you because you're very good at distilling quickly, I think.
She is good at that.
She is.
Thank you. Well, I was actually going to ask if anybody else in our group wanted to talk, because I feel like I've been talking a lot. I'm happy to do it, but I think, in our introductions, we sort of went around and we're sort of from a broad background and of both data producing and data applying, and I think and also teaching as well. And so I thought it was a really good group, and like Everett said, that we wish we had another hour in there, but I don't know if we want to maybe divvy up the questions a little bit, and that way we're not all feeling like we're under the gun talking. But I'll take the first one.
10 minutes.
We'll go back and forth.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the EO, the first question of what EO data could help address this land management challenge. I don't think we need to spend too much time on that, because we talked about a lot of what's out there and what's available already. But some sort of specific examples that came up were like open topography, maybe using like G-Lite or some of the other current high resolution LiDAR data sets that are online already. Looking at some of the open source, mid-resolution data like Landsat through things like Google Earth Engine could be a good idea. And then LST for the specific urban heat island approach. Yeah. And so I don't know if anybody wants to take the second one, if anybody wants to summarize that really quickly. Jenny or anybody?
Just putting you on the spot, Jenny.
I just grabbed a name.
No, that's okay. I mean, I think a number of these are not unfamiliar, and certainly the kind of the temporal resolution considerations, the spatial resolution considerations, they're obviously very important, but they're also kind of omnipresent across so many of the aspects of what we do, I think. For me, if it's okay, I'm going to completely throw things off and actually go to question 4.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Because one of the things that we talked about, well, certainly I did, is for me, that question 4 and question 6, that the institutional or technical barriers preventing the manager from using existing EO resources, and then how can ESIP help address the gaps in the solution? And for me, this is really twofold. So is as far as the barriers, honestly, I think there's a huge element of what you don't know. and your average urban forester is just too overwhelmed, particularly if they're in a local government department. They may have a staff, their background's not necessarily in remote sensing, and uh, and being able to address those types of barriers, I think that the things like the spatial, the temporal, etc., the actual data, that one is much more addressable. It's these really subtle components that I think are much more they're what really need addressing. And then as far as ESIP's role, I think there are opportunities here in terms of like novel stakeholder groups that maybe aren't currently involved in ESIP, but there's such an opportunity there. So I completely threw it off, sorry.
No, I think it's perfect. I appreciate it because it's a good way to summarize it. And I probably should have shared this ahead of time so that we could all sort of be following along with some of the points that we're making. But I think Luis was bringing up a lot of from his background, helping some of the things that could help would be making these data sets more actionable and ready for uptake, so to kind of cut out the middleman of trying to get from the collection of these data sets and then pre-processing and processing and then into data products and then out to the public, but kind of streamlining that effort. I think that's another sort of important consideration that we should be making is that there is so much on that arrow that goes from the data producer to the data user that we need to consider as well.
Yeah. And one additional point, Amanda, I think, for example, NASA has made some really excellent progress in that type of area and moving, beyond things like HDF, right, which just are not accessible for so many. And I think things like Worldview, the NASA Worldview visualization tool, has been really helpful in again making things accessible. But there is such a path that needs to be followed to move forward with that. So there is progress and much more that needs to be made, and completely agree with Luis.
All right, so go ahead, Liz, because I know we're running low on time.
Yeah, running low. Okay, let's see. If we go over to number 6, that was our coastal. Did somebody else want to talk us through this? Did anybody else from our team want to?
I could speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan.
Just given the short time, I want to make a point that there's a mismatch. This use case was for a National Park Service coastal manager, and so it's a fictional character, so I don't know if anybody actually has that job. But in general, trying to use some of these remote sensing tools, the ones that are coming online, there might be a period of time to develop the capacity to incorporate that data. And just to generalize it to land management agencies, the lease areas that a land manager works with, the leases themselves might have like a 50-year time frame that it exists across. So there's that spans multiple missions from NASA, and so there's this dynamic that you don't have the same data source across all that period of time. So that poses challenges to the land manager because, over the course of an individual's career, they might have to use several different data sources. So there's that cycle of capacity building. And it's almost as if by the time they get proficient, they have to move on and start using a different data source. So really what I think would be useful is for those agencies collecting the data to produce the products that land managers can more easily, that are more well suited to land managers' needs, rather than just the raw data, so to speak. That's what I got.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And one other thing we mentioned in there was, once you have that useful data product developed, it's how do you continue the creation of that product. A lot of times with the grantee cycle, you get 3 years of funding to develop a product or develop a data set and analyze it, but then there's not funding there to then continue its creation into the future with new years of data. And so that can always be an issue too with the adoption of a new data product or tool into a workflow. So, okay, well that kind of brings us to the end of our time together. And this was a really interesting discussion. I really appreciate all of you doing it. I think, maybe, let's see, is it worth bringing my slides back up? I think what I would just say next is this is a new collaboration area within ESIP, and our plan is to start having webinars and discussions around some of these topics. And so I hope that you'll consider continuing to engage with us and helping to kind of problem solve some of these issues together, like we've done with these workshops in the past, where we've kind of developed shovel-ready ideas to help move along this application's readiness levels and develop the products and tools that are needed. So I think that's something our collaboration team can do into the future, and we're just getting started. And I hope all of you can keep up the engagement. We're hoping to have our first webinar in February or March, and we might even want to do a redo of these scenarios with our webinar group. But then also we're going to try to have a webinar looking at how kind of Modis is sunsetting and VIIRS is going to be taking over some of these active detection capabilities, and thinking about, we want to hear from the NASA team on what that's going to look like a little bit more. So we're working to set up a webinar on that as well. And thank you all for your time today. I don't know if the other co-leads, if you have anything else you want to add before we finish up.
This is great. I mean, it's sparsely attended, but we had a powerhouse of people here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
discussion.
Good
I
discussion.
agree completely. Yeah, this was great.
Yeah, thank you all so much for attending. And I put up the slide. I don't know if it's showing now, but I was quickly trying to get back to the slide deck just to remind you all, because I think you all have access to the slide deck as well, that if you're interested in getting more involved, we're always looking for new members, and we would love to engage with you further. So I think you can register to join. Just join the mailing list, but also hopefully pretty soon with ESIP, there'll be the collaboration area up on their website as well, so that you'll be able to access us through that as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, please do join our mailing list, and we'll send information about when our next webinars will be.